We're here to cover our press conference in reference to a deputy-involved shooting that occurred on September 20th of 2020. Alongside with me is Chief Deputy Nicholas Huffmeyer and also Detective Cameron Carroll, who is the lead detective in this incident. Chief Deputy Huffmeyer will go over a very detailed timeline for a video presentation that we prepared earlier in the week. And also wanted to let you know that we'll be answering all the questions following the press conference. Me and the chief will be handling the questions. If there's anything specific to the investigation, then Detective Carroll will answer those questions. I just wanted everybody to keep in mind when we get into this video a little deeper that, you know, that we're seeing a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot, it's becoming more frequent that our deputies are coming in contact with people that are either hunched over or passed out, or we're getting calls for service that regards to people that are down and out. This is very similar to this call. When they're finding them at whether it be an intersection or a gas station or a parking lot, they're finding them unconscious. And what we wanted to bring to the attention of the public is that once these people are coming out of the state of rest, I'll call it that, they're passed out, is that they're unpredictable. And you'll see in this video that this particular person basically forced his way out of an incident. And our deputies are experiencing this on a daily, almost on a daily basis. I'm hearing from any, I'm gonna say 1 to 2 times a day. And that's just in the county. I can't even imagine in the city. So as we continue to address this fentanyl epidemic, which we say really became more prevalent in 2020, is becoming more than alarming. That has already come to pass. That bell has been rung, and we wanted everybody to be aware that we're really concerned for the safety of the public, and we're really concerned for the safety of our deputies. That being said, I'm going to turn this over to the chief, and he'll cover the presentation. Thank you, Chief.
All right, sir. Thank you. So, folks, you're welcome to focus on me, but also, again, as per usual with our other press conferences, we'll have some pertinent information there on the side monitor for you. So let's jump right into it. So we're going to start this morning with a timeline of the events as we currently understand them. So we'll start on the morning of September 20th, or excuse me, the afternoon of September 20th. We actually had one of our deputies was handling a crash call in the area of 2nd and Rio Bravo. He was then flagged down by a passerby or a citizen who advised him that there was an individual that they suspected was intoxicated or passed out behind the wheel of a vehicle that was parked at one of the gas pumps there at 201 Rio Bravo. That's a large gas station there at that intersection. So deputies arrive to the scene. Multiple deputies are there. It ultimately ends up being a total of 4 deputies that arrive to the gas station there. They make an attempt to preemptively immobilize the vehicle there at the gas station. As the sheriff mentioned, more and more we are seeing that when these individuals wake up from being passed out and the first thing that they encounter is a law enforcement presence, there seems to be this inclination to flee immediately. And depending on what their particular state of mind is, that can often be a violent interaction. And it's certainly very unsafe for the general motoring public that's just in and around the area. I mean, obviously a gas station is a less than ideal place to have somebody try to force their way out of a vehicle blocking maneuver. So the deputies attempt to initiate contact. That happens at 1:22 in the afternoon. You know, less than a minute later, and you'll see on the video, they're trying to initiate contact, knocking on the window. The windows of this particular vehicle were heavily tinted, couldn't see inside readily. Try the door handle, it's locked. Ultimately, the individual wakes up. He then flees the gas station. During that process, he does strike 2 of our vehicles there at the gas station. 1:25, the suspect then drives into oncoming traffic, hits 2 additional civilian vehicles. We'll show you those crashes. Highly erratic driving behavior, total disregard for the general motoring public. And keep in mind the time of day that this is, and we'll show you some aerial footage there of what some of the other infrastructure pieces that are in place in this area. Multiple schools, kids about to be let out, traffic pretty congested in this particular area at that time of day. All of those things, elevating the danger of the situation. 126, the suspect comes to arrest. He essentially disabled his own vehicle by crashing into, again, those civilian vehicles and also colliding with the curb on more than one occasion. His vehicle comes to arrest in the middle of the intersection of Isleta and Camino del Valle. He gets out of the vehicle immediately, and you're going to see some pretty erratic behavior on his part. And for about 10 minutes, as you can see on the timeline breakdown there, for about 10 minutes, deputies are attempting to make contact with him, try to get him out of the vehicle first, then try to get him to comply with a variety of orders that he's given, and none of those things were successful. In fact, it appears to me when I watch the video that his behavior just becomes more and more erratic as the minutes tick by. Eventually, schools are put on lockdown. Obviously, as I mentioned, there are multiple schools in this immediate vicinity, a lot of heavy congestion, a lot of pedestrian and vehicle traffic in this area. The South Valley Library, which is right there behind where the suspect vehicle came to arrest, is also put on lockdown and shelter in place. And then at 1:35, the suspect repeatedly grabs towards his waistband, making back and forth motions. And then he points what we believe to be a flashlight that was recovered at the scene in the direction of a vehicle, and he does so in a manner that is highly consistent with the way that we are trained on a daily basis to adopt a shooting platform. And we'll show you on the video. It's pretty compelling. And he does that directly at a van of civilians that have pulled in close proximity behind his vehicle. And then at 1:35, those shots are fired. So we'll go through the video kind of in pieces. We'll start with the video at the gas station and that initial interaction, then we'll go through the shooting video. But first, we'll take a look, as I mentioned, at those, kind of what we would consider, critical locations in the immediate vicinity, those elementary schools. And those are all things that you have to remember deputies are trying to keep in mind of other complications that they'll have to deal with this situation, particularly a suspect that's acting like this, disabled in the middle of the intersection. A pretty dynamic to put it lightly. So I think we're ready, Jamie, to go on to the video. So if I could just direct your attention to the screen there, this will be the initial interaction that the deputies are having with the suspect there in the gas station. You pause it right there, Jamie, please. Just to explain what you're seeing. So the deputies are attempting to, as I mentioned, preemptively stop him from fleeing. Our experience more and more is showing that when these individuals wake up, they immediately want to run. Now that creates a few different problems for us. We don't want to knowingly let someone who we believe might be under the influence of something, who probably shouldn't be operating a motor vehicle, to just flee and now endanger the rest of the innocent motoring public that's just trying to go about the business of the day. So we're trying our best to implement some tactics to stop that before it happens. So that's what you're seeing there with the positioning of the vehicles and why so many vehicles are there on the scene. Go ahead, Jamie, thank you. Pause it right there, Jamie. So, like we talked about in the timeline, he runs the red light there at Isleta and Rio Bravo. He makes the left going, we're now going south on Isleta, and we're approaching the area there where, in this particular median, they added some concrete portions to the center median, so you do have to be careful. You can't just drive down the center median. I'm not sure if he collides with one of those, but you're about to see his first collision there with one of the civilian vehicles. For whatever reason, he's trying to pass them on the right-hand side. There's no room there. There's a bike lane, and that's it. So he collides with that right curb and continues to go south. Go ahead. Pause it again, and you can see if you're just a regular person just driving down the road and you see police lights, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to pull to the right, and you can see how dangerous one of these incidents gets very quickly when this individual is going to whatever lengths he feels are necessary to go around these vehicles, and that includes passing them on the right, going up onto the sidewalk. There could have been pedestrians in that area, etc. Go ahead. So he's essentially disabled his vehicle at this point.
Get out of the vehicle! Get out of the vehicle! Get out of the vehicle!
So that's the final resting point of the vehicle there. So we're going to move, and there's a lot of video which we'll release and you'll be provided. We have multiple deputy units on scene. Obviously, all of our deputies have body-worn lapel cams that are running, but we also have a variety of dash camera footage from several of the units. The vast majority of our patrol units do also have dash cameras as well, forward and rear facing into the cage in the back cameras. So we have the benefit of quite a lot of footage to view. And again, you'll be provided with that. So now we'll take a look at just some of the interactions that happen with the suspect. And it's over the course of about 10 minutes. Obviously, we're not going to sit here and play all 10 minutes of footage. We'll provide that to you at the conclusion of today. But we've placed it at a point here in the video where he's been out of the vehicle on the passenger side for quite some time. We've attempted to beanbag out some of the windows that are very dark in an effort to, initially before he got out of the car, to try to gain some kind of visual of where the suspect was, enhance communications, or at least attempt to communicate with him, because initially you can't see through the windows, they're extremely dark. And so we did make those attempts using some less lethal tools to break those windows out. One of the problems with beanbagging heavily tinted windows is the tint, as you know, tends to hold the glass together. It doesn't just shatter and fall down. That's not the way it works in actual practicality. So he's now been out of the vehicle for several minutes, back and forth toward that front passenger side door. He had both doors open at one point, and the van that I mentioned earlier when I started talking is there in the immediate background. That van pulled up with at least one occupant. I'm not sure if there were additional occupants, but at least one driver. And that is the individual that he is going to make the shooting motion toward here in just a moment. So go ahead, Jamie.
Stop! Put your hands up!
Put your hands up!
Hands up!
Put your hands up!
Move back!
You got a gun!
Keep fire! Keep fire!
So we're going to slow that down, and I know it's just for frame of reference, the distances, the range of distances that the deputies are at is from between 20 yards at the closest to about 33 yards at the farthest. So it's quite a distance, and if you see an individual turn in the manner that we're about to show you and point that black cylindrical object, you have 6 deputies who all fired, all simultaneously, all seeing the same thing, all processing the information in the same way, and all firing at the same time. So that tells me there's some uniformity there with what they were seeing, the input that their brain is processing, and they all simultaneously perceive that as a lethal threat to those civilians that were behind him there. So the first thing he does is he reaches over with his right hand, he does it one-handed, and points toward the van. That's the first motion. And then he comes up with both hands in a very clear shooting platform. I mean, if there's anyone that would recognize what a shooting platform is, it's law enforcement. I mean, we do that hundreds of times a year through qualifications and firearms training. So I'm not surprised in the slightest that they recognized that and saw that as a threat. So you can see that that is him there with both hands up. And again, we believe it was the flashlight that he was holding. The witness there in the van did indicate that they thought they saw a flash. It turns out that it's possible that he just had the flashlight on when he was pointing it at the witness there in the van, who was cooperative and did indicate that they thought he was going to shoot them. So that was the statement from the person in the van. That wasn't the statement from the deputies. The witness in the van indicated that they thought their life was in danger as well. Go ahead, Jamie. So we'll move on to some of the suspect information that we have. This gentleman's name was Colby Atkins. I don't want to belabor the criminal history. It's extensive. You can see it on the screen there. He was released from federal prison in 2020. Some of his prior criminal history: bank robbery, various drug-related offenses, probation violations, and then propensity of resisting contacts with law enforcement. I talked to you a little bit earlier about the beanbag deployment. There's some interesting things on this particular photo I can go through. The car was stolen, not a surprise to us at all. Just a few details you'll see there on the car. It has a Marine Corps veteran plate, and then it also has a sticker on the gas tank cover door there. The owner of the vehicle indicated to us that neither one of those things were on the vehicle when it was stolen. So we don't know if that is some kind of a ruse that the suspect used, adorning the vehicle with various patriotic things, Patriot plate, veteran plate, in an effort to reduce the likelihood that they might be stopped by law enforcement. That is a possibility. But you can see where our deputy did attempt to beanbag out some of those windows. Heavy tint on the inside, it acts like a piece of tape. It doesn't always just shatter and fall right down. So that is what happened when they tried to beanbag those windows out. Some of the items that we recovered from the scene, I've talked quite a bit about the flashlight. We did confirm that item does not belong to any of the deputies who responded to the call. It does not belong to any of the deputies who rendered aid to the suspect after the shooting, which we did. Some of the other items: fentanyl, heroin, and then some of the things that we often see with identity theft, some white-collar crime, a whole variety of credit cards, pieces of identification, etc. The deputies involved in the incident, I'll just quickly go through them. You know, ranging from 1 year in service all the way up to 14, the sergeant that was on duty at the time, Sergeant Luke Edwards, Deputy Boyle, Deputy Gallegos, Deputy Aragon, Deputy Corona, and Deputy Zabo. Again, ranging from 1 year to 14 years in service. And lastly, the thing that I'll conclude with is just a reminder, you know, we try to be as conscientious about the criminal investigation still being ongoing. So there are some questions that it would be very inappropriate for us to answer or talk about. We just ask for your respect in that regard. And then, of course, after the criminal investigation is concluded, we still have to do our internal administrative investigation that is pretty extensive. And that includes a top to bottom review of everything from the initial interaction with the suspect all the way through the end of the shooting. So with that, I don't have any other remarks about the incident, but we're happy to take a few questions if you do have some. Yes, sir.
You mentioned first and second shooting there under the officers' names. Did we see the first and second shooting? Did that all happen in like a very short amount of time, or was there a first and second incident?
No, that's just indicating that those individuals had been involved in a previous officer-involved shooting.
Got it.
Yes, ma'am.
How many shots were fired in total?
I don't have the total round count. I'm sorry.
Has his toxicology report come back yet? Do you know why he was
I
unconscious?
asked about that this morning. It has not yet. You know, that's the best I can offer you is what the items of contraband that were found and the controlled substances that were found inside the vehicle, what we likely believe in our experience tends to show us, but we're waiting on that as well.
You said the criminal investigation is ongoing. Forgive me, does the suspect survive in this shooting?
No.
Suspect's dead. So what does the criminal investigation entail?
The criminal investigation takes a look at the legality of the shooting itself, and all of the things that go along with that. That's the most succinct answer I can give you to that. Yes, ma'am.
Do you by any chance know what his formal cause of death was? Was it just one shot, and where he was?
I don't, and I don't even know if the OMI report's been completed yet, but that would be something that'll be included in the final criminal investigation when it's all finished. Yes, sir.
He was released from federal prison. Do you guys know the charges he was facing back then, or?
Was it the bank robbery, Jamie? So yeah, it was that first one right below it was for a bank robbery that he was incarcerated for.
You mentioned the positioning of the vehicles trying to mitigate this situation beforehand.
Yeah.
Was that executed properly? It seems like he still got away, and it looks like it was something that you guys have experienced before, as you alluded to.
Yeah.
Looking back on that, what do you see in review as far as BCSO's effectiveness there?
It's a great question, and what I can tell you is that will certainly be something that we review when we do our administrative review, definitely. Yes,
Do you
ma'am.
know how long he'd been unconscious at the gas station?
I don't. The time from when the witness saw them, you know, those time delays kind of compound. It's like, well, the citizen sees them, and then that may take them a few minutes to kind of register, like, hey, this is probably something law enforcement should be notified. Then they got to find one of us. We just happen to be in the area. So, you know, it could have been 1 minute. It could have been 10 minutes. I'm not entirely sure.
With your training and experience, what likelihood would you say that he was under the influence of something there at the gas station?
I mean, I'd be totally speculating, but I think that would be a reasonable, not assumption necessarily, but a reasonable conclusion to come to, certainly. I mean, you don't often see people, I suppose a medical episode is one possibility. Those are pretty rare.
Do you know when the car was stolen?
I don't, I'm sorry.
And are all the deputies who were involved in the shooting, are they back on duty, or are they back from administrative leave?
As far as I understand, all but one. And as of today, they may have been back as well. I think the final person was due to come back this week, if I'm not mistaken.
We're seeing a common theme of fentanyl, and then the suspects, you know, like you say, are fleeing. What can be done to improve the safety of the public? I mean, we saw a dangerous high-speed chase. They're ramming people. They're putting you guys in danger. I mean, what needs to be done on the front side and the back side so that we're safe?
Yeah, I mean, I'll stay away from some of the larger political, you know, conversations about legislation and whether or not we take drug crimes seriously here. I have my own personal opinions, but what can we do from a law enforcement perspective, I think is what we're trying to do. Trying to put as many of those tactics in place beforehand to try to stop them from doing that. But, you know, we're always bound to also abide by protecting an individual's civil rights too. You know, so it's a delicate balance of protecting the public, safeguarding individual civil rights, and those include the civil rights of the suspect. So we are working through those things, making sure our deputies are properly trained in how to use those vehicle blocking maneuvers. But, you know, if the sheriff wants to speak more to some of the things that could be done, you know, on the legislative side, you know, maybe he has a comment about that.
I think more so, not so much on the legislative side, but I think you've seen recently we do a lot of collaboration with our federal partners to include one of the, if not the largest seizure of fentanyl in the history of New Mexico, which included 1 million pills. You know, I also got information that recently there was a seizure in Riverside, California, where they said that they had seized enough fentanyl to kill every person in the United States. So for me, what it really comes down to is enforcement. You know, that's why we're here. We'll continue to collaborate. We'll continue to do proactive operations throughout, whether it be Bernalillo County or the city of Albuquerque, to keep people safe. But I can't overemphasize the importance of the public to be aware of what they're seeing out there. So if you will, and if you and you're willing to put out those things to be aware of some of the signs of when these people are overdosed or they're sitting there in a delusional state, it's probably a good idea to put that information out to the public, which we'll also do on our website.
You said that the officers rendered aid to Atkins. What kind of aid was provided?
I saw the tail end of the video when I was reviewing it myself. I don't know if they were applying chest seals, tourniquets, other things. It could have been a variety of all of those things. Our deputies are trained and given a variety of medical equipment to help them. And like I said, that includes tourniquets, chest seals, compression wraps, and other things. Every single deputy has that equipment. I'm just going to take a couple more. I'm trying to get to everybody.
You mentioned that the vehicle, the license plate and the sticker on the gas cap
Yep.
had been added by the suspect. Was the dark tinted windows also added, or did the original owner add?
So I don't know if it was added by him specifically. What I can tell you is that the owner of the vehicle said that they did not add those items to the car. I think that it stands to reason somebody did, and it probably wasn't just for fun. As far as the tinted windows, I'm not sure, sir.
When it comes to the decision to shoot, when it comes to the decision to fire, does that is that decision arrived on if the person is threatening not just law enforcement but also people surrounding the scene? Because you said it appeared he was aiming towards the van. If somebody you believe is a threat to general public, is that are BCSO deputies trained to fire in that instance?
Yeah, our mandate, just from a protection standpoint, first and foremost, is to protect the innocent public. You know, usually when you see that mandate listed in policies or whatnot, usually protecting fellow law enforcement officers comes second to that. So absolutely, that is something that is talked about, and that's a universal principle of law enforcement here in the United States. I'll take one more. I thought somebody else had their hand up, maybe that hadn't asked a question. Okay.
You mentioned at some point the suspect was in and out of the vehicle with both doors open. Besides commands, did any of the deputies try to use any less lethal force?
So the only less lethal application would have been those beanbag rounds to try to
Blow out the window?
get the windows open. The reason I brought up the distance is 20 to 33 yards starts to become a limitation for us in the effectiveness of some of those tools. You could just see by, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds on some of the specific tactical decisions, but he's in the middle of an intersection. Distance is often our friend, especially when we're dealing with someone who has unknown intentions. So we're not going to be, right on top of the vehicle. We're going to be at a safe distance that we feel for us is somewhere we can control and manage the scene. So the best way I can answer that is distance does affect our ability to use some less lethal tools. All right, that was quite a few questions. Hopefully I answered as many as you had. Again, if you will get with our PIOs, we will provide you with all of the video, the presentation that you saw today, and again, look forward to, once the criminal investigation is completed, you can get a copy of that, and any of those other questions you have will certainly be answered in there, okay? All right, thank you very much, folks.